Alright, so that was Kipper. Hide and seek. Let's talk about this. Now, first of all, this is one of many Nick Jr. shows that did an episode dedicated to the game of hide and seek. Lil Bear did one, Blue's Clues did one, Kipper did one, Franklin did one, Maggie and the Ferocious Beast did one. Hide and seek is a very popular game with Nick Jr. characters from my childhood. And because of that, hide and seek became also one of my favorite games. Although as a kid I was never really into the hiding or the seeking part, at least not at first. I kind of got into that later, but when I was 3 and 4 years old, the best part for me was counting to 10. I liked counting to 10. I liked numbers, because every time you count to 10 it's always the same, and whenever I would hear my favorite Nick Jr. characters counting to 10, it was always 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So there was a little bit of, like a sense of consistency or stability there. It was very easy for me to learn that. So that was great. When I was little, I used to act out this episode a lot at my grandparents' house. I would basically play all the characters and try to find my grandpa, and he would hide around the house. To me, it felt kind of perfect playing hide and seek there because, for some reason, their house reminded me of Kipper's house. Maybe it's because the walls were all painted white, and Kipper has all these just plain white backgrounds. I even remember the parts where Kipper starts counting and then it just dissolves to the next scene with him seeking. Whenever I would get to that part of the story, I would just kind of stop counting when I got to around 6, 7, or 8, and then I would just start walking around and say, come out, wherever you are, just like Kipper did on the show. Whenever I would memorize a show like this as a kid, it wasn't really so much the story I was memorizing, but the aesthetics of the show. I remember every picture, I remember every sound, every word, every note of music, but understanding the actual context of the stories, that would not come until a little bit later, until I was maybe 5, 6, or 7. That's one of the reasons I'm doing this podcast, is because looking back on these old shows from my childhood, even looking at it as an adult, I'm discovering some things about it that I hadn't noticed before, because I'm a little bit more able to understand the meaning of the stories better. And I'm also figuring out a lot of the parts of the shows that I misunderstood when I was little. So if you watch these shows with your kids, and if there's something that they might not pick up right away, maybe this podcast will help you understand that some things take a little longer for children, especially children with autism, to understand when they see or hear something in a story or a show, or even something that you might say to them in real life. It was cool to see Mouse. Mouse is one of my favorite characters. She's not really one of the major characters, she just kind of comes and goes. This is one of 4 episodes in which Mouse appears. The other 3 are the Mouse, of course, Cousins, and the Key. Just those 3 in Hide and Seek are the only 4 episodes where we see Mouse. Now, speaking of Mouse, I mentioned earlier that there was a Kipper book called Hide Me, Kipper, and that book has Kipper and Mouse, but it's a different story than the hide and seek story that we see here on the show. As a matter of fact, this book wasn't released until, I think, 2009. Yeah, there were a bunch of other books that came after the show, and in that book, Mouse is trying to hide from a cat that's looking for Mouse. This is a cat character that we never see on TV, and so Kipper is helping Mouse hide from this cat. The cat doesn't want to eat Mouse, though. He's just playing hide and seek with him. But yeah, so apparently there were a whole bunch of Kipper stories that came later that we never got to see on TV. Interesting. When I was 5 years old, my grandmother gave me a little puppet theater with these 3 hand puppets. There was a frog, a duck, and a dog. Didn't play with the dog all that much. The frog and duck were my 2 favorites. And one time, I did a little puppet play in my house, at home, not my grandparents' house, just my regular house, and my dad made a video of it. I did lots of puppet plays on video. They were all basically rip-offs of shows that I watched. I did a bunch of Lil Bear episodes, I did a few Kippers, maybe a Franklin or 2. and I would recite those shows word for word with my little hand puppets. And one time, I did this episode, Kipper playing hide and seek with Mouse, but instead of Kipper and Mouse, I used the frog and duck puppets. The frog played Kipper and the duck played Mouse, and I just referred to their names as Frog and Duck, I believe. And that was the first of many puppet plays that I did with the frog and duck puppets. And as time went on, my dad started using those two puppets, and he would make the frog and duck talk to me, and we'd have these funny conversations and play little games together. That became like kind of a fun thing that we did almost every night for a couple of years.